Greetings and salutations, young grasshoppers, ninjas, ninjettes, boys and girls of all ages, and welcome back to the show that's all about helping you rediscover your health, upgrade your fitness, and optimize your wellness, all while having fun kicking ass through lifestyle design, otherwise better known as the Optimize Self Show. So if you've seen the show before, you know that this is very much a Q&A type of format show. You keep asking questions and I keep answering them, or at least attempting to. But for those of you tuning in the first time, well, now you know kind of what this show is all about and how it runs. So anyways, we got a lot of fun topics for today's show. But before we get to that, like I mentioned, this is very much a Q&A show. I think content is great, but in the realm of health, fitness, and or wellness, I think and I think many people would agree with me that the majority of health info out there is a combination of misinformation, marketing, and social memes. There's just too much out there. And so instead of adding to the problem by just throwing more and more content at you and other people, I would much rather create context, meaning that I want to know what you want to know about and I want to respond to it. So that's why it's very much a Q&A type of format. And what I always recommend to people, and if you're a first time watcher of the show, is to head on over to Optimize, Optimize Self Ninja. I should have a tab here open. Okay, well, I'll just share with you guys the entire screen. That ought to do it. All right, sorry about the matrix-like effect. But if you go to optimizeself.ninja, which is the homepage, you can watch all the past episodes, 31 now to be exact. And right below the video player, there's this big red-orange button, kind of changes color. It says, click here to take the Optimize Self test, yada, yada, yada. And you can click that, put your email in, and you'll be emailed a link to take the Optimize Self test. And if you're wondering what exactly that is, it's a self-assessment type of questionnaire that will help you figure out what parts of your life, what aspects, what variables, what I refer to as the foundations of health, those being breathing, hydration, sleep, nutrition, stress, movement, and exercise, as well as other things like environment and mindset. How are all those things, how are you doing in each of those areas of life? And how are they positively or negatively influencing and contributing to your overall well-being? And so what you'll be doing by going through that questionnaire and self-evaluating is you'll be supplying me with the information I need to better help you. All right. And we actually have, I believe, coming up, one for Silvia. She actually took the Optimize Self test. So I will show you basically how that works in just a little bit. Let me stop doing the screen share. And there you go. You can see the intro shot again. You will see me in just a little bit. I'm not that camera shy. So that's the way, if you haven't already done so, I would recommend is to submit your questions through there. Because I always realize that when people take the Optimize Self test, it causes them to kind of reflect on each of those areas of their life, and they ask better quality questions, which then allows me to give you better quality answers. Also, by taking the Optimize Self test, you'll be added to the Optimize Self email list and be sent a convenient summary of each episode as they are released, which include timestamps, which make it very easy to navigate. All right. Now, if you haven't taken the test, or for whatever reason you're like, nah, I'm just going to start off with something simple, you can actually text me your questions at 619-800-2459. Again, that's 619-800-2459. And in just a little bit, I will put up a lower third with that number on there. So if you're struggling to find something to write or type it down on, don't worry about that. But again, 619-800-2459. You can text me your questions, or you can also leave a question for me in the form of a voicemail question. I almost never pick up my phone, so don't worry about that. And it'll go to voicemail, and I will respond to your question in an upcoming episode of the Optimize Self Show. All right. So with that all done and said, let's get started. So today's topics. Let's see, Silvia and I put our heads together to straighten out her scoliosis through the part art and part science, better known as lifestyle design, I hope I'm pronouncing this name correctly. Busi, B-U-S-I, Busi, is busy dealing with mid/upper back pain and shoulder pain, which she's told is due to structural scoliosis, but hopefully we can help straighten things out. All puns intended there. Yael and I discuss how your feet should be working when you run and what to do if they're not. And last but certainly not least, kind of a new segment that we're trying out on the show is kind of a catalyst of the day. This is something fun and also helpful, let's call it edutainment, that I'd like to share with you, that I find interesting, that I think you can benefit from. And this is how to achieve perfect posture effortlessly while sitting with a cool little gizmo that I just found out about the other day. All right. Now, I will take just a moment before we dive into the first question today, the first topic, which is Silvia's response to the Optimize Self test that she took, and just let you know a quick little bit about the Optimize Self Dojo, and basically how it can help you and what's included inside, as well as tell you by joining the Optimize Self Dojo, this is what funds the show. This is what keeps it free, okay? And there's three really key components to the Optimize Self Dojo. The first is that it's a part accountability and support group. And this is key to success in anything. I'm sure you've heard time and time again. I don't have to tell you, so I'm going to go over this very briefly. But anytime that you try to achieve something, whether it be health, fitness, wellness wise, financial, any type of goal, there's power in numbers. So when you go into something with a partner or a group, there's much more likelihood that you're going to stick with it and achieve your goals. So part of the Optimize Self Dojo is a private Facebook group which has a built-in accountability and support. And maybe a little later, I will show you that. Actually, what the heck? I will show you now really quick, and then we'll get on with today's show. Let's see. I guess I have to do entire screen again. I do just want to show you the one page. There we go. Awesome. Okay. So here is the Optimize Self Dojo. And as you can see, here is a private group. And this is where we, post everything. And again, there's a pin post here. It's very much accountability and support. And that's the first key component. The next are the weekly live trainings we do, which if you go over here to the events tab, you'll see the ones that we've done in the past, and there'll be upcoming ones. And these are live trainings, aka hangouts, that we do every Saturday at 10 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. And these really, they're live. You can come on and join me live on video, and they're recorded, they're archived for you to watch later. And we talk about whatever you deem as important. We put our heads together, we use the collective knowledge, and more importantly, experience of the group, and we solve your problems. We help you overcome whatever you believe is holding you back, and basically get you from where you are now to where you want to be as quickly, as simply, and efficiently as possible. All right, so that's the second part. And that's a huge component, is that live interaction between you and me and the other dojo members. And then last but certainly not least, let me make sure you guys can still see this here, is the Optimize Self Arsenal. So hopefully, yay, that did open. Okay, good. Want to make sure you guys can see that. So the Optimize Self Arsenal is basically a collection of guides, resources, and video tutorials, along with tools to help you implement what you learn here. And this is basically the most important stuff. If we look real quick in the table of contents, the most important stuff that I've learned over the past 13 plus years, spending tens of thousands of hours and tens of thousands of dollars working both on myself, my friends, my family, loved ones, clients over the years, and basically figuring out kind of the patterns, why most people succeed and why most people fail in their health, fitness, and or wellness endeavors. That could be found right here, okay? So that's pretty much about that. Oh, cool. Okay, now it's switched over to the tab. If you want to learn more, just go to optimizeself.ninja, and below where you click to take the Optimize Self test, just scroll below that and you can start to read everything that's included inside the Optimize Self Dojo. All right. So with that said, let me take that off, that screen share, and I'm going to grab a drink of water and we will get to the first topic of the day. All right. So, you know what? I will take this off, wave hi to everybody. And let me put a little lower third before I get going and I forget to put this up here with my name and where you can find me. I told you I was going to put that that phone number up, so I will do that now. All right, so that's me, Justin Archer, aka Sensei, and you can find me over at optimizeself.ninja, and then there's the phone number that you could text me a question or leave a voicemail question on. All right, sorry they're a little bit close together, but YouTube/Google, it was like one character over and it would drop down and you couldn't see it, so we'll make a custom one later on, but I digress. All right, so Silvia took the Optimize Self test, the new and updated, new and improved 2.01. So Silvia, first and foremost, I just want to acknowledge you for having the initiative and taking the Optimize Self test and just investing that few minutes that it takes to go through the test in yourself, in your health, and taking responsibility, getting back in the driver's seat, all that good stuff. Congrats. So in the test, I will read you the questions that I pose on the test, and then Silvia's response and my response to Silvia. Okay. And so I asked, when it comes to your health, fitness, and/or wellness, what is the biggest problem or issue that you struggle with or have in the past? Silvia says scoliosis and gluten intolerance. So Silvia, and anyone else who's also struggling with scoliosis and gluten intolerance, is I would suggest checking out the scoliosis routine found inside the Optimize Self First Aid Kit. And just like I showed just before we got started here, if you rewind just a few minutes on the video, inside the Optimize Self Dojo, if you go to optimizeself.ninja, scroll below there and you'll see what the Optimize Self First Aid Kit is. But basically, it's a collection of exercise routines, postural corrective exercise routines, some strengthening, some stretching exercises that are designed to relieve 20 of the most common chronic pain symptoms, scoliosis being one of them. There's ones for knee pain, back pain, hip pain. Again, the most common symptoms. So check that out. But off the top of my head, and again, not having any photos to go off of to evaluate your posture. So again, with that, I can be more accurate. I'll put a couple exercise or links to video tutorials, to some exercises down below in the show notes over on YouTube. So under the mention link section to 5 exercises: standing windmill, static back arm glides, and cats and dogs. Sorry, so 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. No, 5. Standing windmill, static back arm glides, cats and dogs. Okay, so I guess that was only 4. Anyways, they will be down below. And let's see what else. Oh, I would definitely recommend, assuming you do join the Optimize Self Dojo, which granted I'm biased, but I definitely recommend you do, is checking out the Optimizing Your Nutrition module. Because you said you deal with gluten intolerance, and that's something I'm very familiar with, working with people with gluten intolerance, celiac disease. My stepdad and I are both intolerant to a certain degree to gluten, but I want to point out, just in case, Silvia, if you don't know, maybe you already do, or other people watching don't know, some people say, oh no, I'm fine with gluten, and they're only looking at the symptoms in a particular area, most likely digestive wise. But gluten and other food intolerances can manifest themselves in more than one way. So not just, digestive wise, but skin wise, joint pain, again, itchy type of skin issues, a decrease in cognitive performance. So an example is that once gluten was eliminated from both my stepdad and I's diet, he tried to reintroduce it. And what he noticed is when he had it, it would really, really mess with his digestive system. He would be just bent over in pain and stomach pains. For me, I don't really get that unless I consume a large quantity of it, like a lot. Instead, if I have more than probably 2 bites worth, I can feel for about 2 to 3 days. It is dose dependent, but for 2 to 3 days, I can feel my cognitive performance kind of just slow to a crawl, and so that's why I avoid it. So that's my own personal, if you want to say stories or experience with gluten. But inside the Optimizing Your Nutrition module, which is included in the Optimize Self Arsenal, which is found inside the Optimize Self Dojo, hopefully follow that. I point out, how to go about, well, optimizing your nutrition using an elimination diet, not as a lifestyle diet. This is not something that you do forever, but you use as a diagnostic tool to figure out what foods are harming you, for example, like gluten, and how to eliminate them from your diet, keep them away, right? Because that's poisoning you, that's toxic. And then finding what foods replenish you and heal you and consuming more of those, right? A couple things too is you got to look at what gluten's hidden. A lot of people think, oh, I don't have, breads and flours and things like that. And you'd be surprised that gluten, the places that it hides, for example, ketchup. I never thought that would be ketchup until I really started looking and going, why is this in here? Well, it turns out they use it, I guess, as kind of a thickening agent. Not in all ketchups, but quite a few, in mustard and certain condiments. You got to be really careful. A lot of times people think that, oh, I don't eat that food, but unbeknownst to them, they are actually consuming it. All right. So you got to be careful of that. The other thing too is, and you may already know this, but again, I'm talking for people maybe also watching that are struggling with some gluten intolerance, is there's plenty of flour alternatives now. It doesn't have to be just white or whole wheat flour. There's coconut flours, there's almond flours, and the list goes on and on. Those are the two most common I can think of on the top of my head. But definitely take a look at those. And those are ways, if you still, I miss bread or I miss the flours and everything, there's definitely alternatives. All right. So let's move on. I ask, if you could ask me one question about your health, fitness, and or wellness that you would like for me to answer in an upcoming episode of the Optimize Self Show, what would it be? And Sylvia asked, how does scoliosis correction work in my case? Well, Sylvia, scoliosis is really, it's simply an adjective to describe a current state of being, in this case, your posture, okay? Or I'm sorry, your posture, but more specifically, your spine. And what dictates your current state of being, the position of your spine, i.e. your scoliosis, is whatever you do the most, not your best intentions. That said, postural corrective exercises are very helpful, but they're part of the recipe. They're not the entire recipe, by which I mean you have to look at your overall lifestyle. I've said it before, I'll say it again. I'm sure I'll repeat myself on this episode, but the human body is a stimulus response organism, and it responds to stimulus 24/7 without prejudice. So it's what you do the majority of the time that matters, not your best intentions. And exercise is great, but unfortunately, I think in a lot of society, exercise has been put up on a pedestal as the one and only way, or the best way to overcome health, fitness, wellness problems, right? To get you from point A to point B. And exercise is important, but unless you've addressed in this order of priority, in order to not only survive but thrive, your breathing, hydration, sleep, nutrition, stress, and movement, as well as taking into consideration things like your environment and mindset, you don't have to be perfect on all of them, but if you haven't addressed them and got them to 80% or above, I hate to see people try to exercise their way better, because the results you get from the exercise are always going to be limited by the accumulative quality or state of those foundations of health. All right, so hopefully that makes sense. I just hate to see people try harder when they're just missing something that, again, unbeknownst to them, they may not even know. It's always those mistakes that we don't know we can make that usually hurt us the most or hold us back. So just something important to keep in mind. All right, one more. If you could ask me another question about health, fitness, wellness, whatever, what would it be? Let's see. Sylvia says, really, I'm just here to get my back straight. I would also ask if is meat really that bad for the body? I'm a passionate carnivore. Yeah, you and me both. I love meat. Love it, love it, love it, especially bacon. Who doesn't love bacon? But just be mindful of the quality and the sources of the meat that you eat. And remember that you're not just what you eat, you're what you eat eats. And even furthermore, you are what you eat eats, but you are what you absorb. So there's a big difference between corn-fed beef and grass-fed beef. If you look at the vitamins, the minerals, so the quality is really important. And if you have quality meat, and for example, if we're talking just sticking on beef, grass-fed beef or even dairy from them, and it's grass-fed, you're going to be a lot better off. So no, meat I think is vital. It's important. And for any vegetarians or vegans watching, can you live without meat? Yes, but it's much harder because you have to piece together to form whole amino acid profiles. And even then, so it's really hard. You have to be really strict with your diet. And I've just never seen, I've seen people survive on it. I've seen people be good and healthy on it. I've just never really seen people thrive to the ability they can when they do consume high quality meats, not conventional farming, that kind of thing. I'm definitely against that, both for the animal's sake and also for us humans who are consuming their meat or the dairy and that kind of thing. I want to steer clear of that. All right. So Sylvia, hopefully that answers that question. All right, so now we're going to get into some questions about Sylvia's foundations of health, okay? So I ask, how often do you practice any forms of meditation and or conscious, ideally diaphragmatic breathing? And she says weekly. So, weekly is good, probably more than other people do in a month or a week. But I would suggest trying to get in 15 minutes of conscious diaphragmatic breathing total per day. And let me emphasize the total per day. It doesn't have to be 15 minutes at once. If you try to do that actually in one bout, one whole chunk, it's really hard. Because what I mean by conscious diaphragmatic breathing is breathing where your diaphragm, which basically, let me straighten my shirt here, kind of goes under the rib cage, goes here. It actually ties into your pelvic floor and your lower back, as well as to your hip flexors. And if you're breathing diaphragmatically, it'll kind of feel and look like this. So if you put your hands on your hip bones, right? Here's the hard bony surfaces. Right above it, if you inhale, notice how it pushed my hands out to the sides, much like when you blow into a balloon and the balloon expands. That's your diaphragm engaging. But often, more often than not, I would say 8 times out of 10 or even 9 times out of 10, when people are in pain, especially I would say this is very common with scoliosis, because with scoliosis, there's a disconnect between the kinetic chain of the shoulder girdle, the spine, and then the pelvic girdle below it. So there's a disconnect there. And what happens is your primary breathing biomechanics should be to go towards diaphragmatic breathing. And that shuts down due to postural misalignments, but you still have to get air in. So what happens is people start to breathe with their auxiliary breathing muscles in their chest and shoulders and neck and trapezius area. And that's okay if you were running wind sprints, but if you're doing it just, talking, having a normal conversation, sitting down, chatting with friends, that becomes a real issue because when you factor in that the average human takes roughly 22 to 30,000 breaths per day, if you're not breathing down here and instead you're breathing up here, right, basically up and down shoulder movement, that's 22 to 30,000 tiny shoulder shrugs you're doing. And again, we're going to get into a little bit of this later, so a little teaser here. But one very common denominator with people with scoliosis is they have some type of asymmetry in their shoulder girdle. So just that breathing could set your shoulders off enough, which basically the shoulder blade almost like a sail on a boat. If it catches the wind, will pull the mast of the ship a certain direction. That shoulder blade being offset due to the compromised breathing mechanics will pull or shift in a lateral way the spine to one side. That's what we call scoliosis, right? Or at least that's part of it, and then sometimes mixed in with rotation. So just re-engaging, reestablishing proper breathing mechanics, getting that breath down into the lower back and sides, and getting this to kind of ease back and relax will do wonders for helping realign the scoliosis, as well as it's going to get more blood and oxygen to, basically where it needs to go, whether it be your brain, your extremities. So that'll be really good. Let's see, we talked about compromised breathing mechanics as being one of the leading causes or contributors to scoliosis. All right, let's move on. Let me grab some water here. Okay, I asked, how much do you weigh? Silvia says 112. How many ounces of water do you drink per day? 70. Basically, the reason for those two questions to see, does the water consumption match up with the weight? And I'm happy to say, Silvia, yeah, it does. So keep up the good work. And don't forget to drink more on days that you work out or exercise, and or when you consume caffeinated or alcoholic beverages. So if you have a cup of coffee, like I have over here, cheers, that's fine. Just make sure for every cup you have, drink 2 cups of water. Same thing with a glass of wine, okay? It's starting to cool off, so I gotta drink it. So yeah, I usually recommend people shoot for start at a bare minimum, and again, I can't emphasize enough, bare minimum of half your body weight in ounces of water per day. Okay, and then go up from there. Again, if you have any, like you do a manual labor job, you're working out, you're training as an athlete, you consume caffeine or alcohol, you want to go up from there. All right. Now, why is this important? Well, proper hydration is vital to length, tension, function, and adaptability of your muscles, your myofascia, and other connective tissues surrounding your spine, as well as the rest of your body. So, for example, if you're trying to realign your spine or correct scoliosis, if the muscles, right? Because if you think about, well, why is my spine shifted one way and rotated, right? What put it there? What moves bones? What moves the spine? Muscles, right? So you have a muscular imbalance that's causing this. Well, if you're trying to do exercises or assume certain positions or adopt new movement habits, and that muscle, that tissue is not properly hydrated, then the muscles, what is dried up muscle, right? It's beef jerky, right? We buy it at the stores, we eat it. It's delicious. We talked about this. I love meat. But what happens if you try to stretch beef jerky? Either one of two things. Either A, nothing happens, doesn't go anywhere, or B, it does go somewhere, but it rips and tears. I don't think you want either of those for yourself. Talking to Silvia, you're drinking water, that's good. But anyone else, no, you want to make sure that your muscles and other tissues are properly hydrated, and like a nice supple filet mignon, so that way it adapts to the stimulus you feed it, whether, like I said, through posture corrective exercises like I mentioned before, or just sitting, standing, adopting new positions, and movements, things like that. So that's why hydration is so important, as well as to the rest of the body. But I know we're kind of focusing on the scoliosis. How much and what kind of salt do you consume daily? Let's see. Silvia says, where did it go? Sea salt, not much. So the reason I always suggest using pink Himalayan salt or Celtic sea salt, I recommend the first one more, but either is fine. Use it on your food or in your water to taste. Usually in extreme situations, I'll get more specific with more measurements. But going off the information I have, is just sprinkle on your food, sprinkle it in your water, is to ensure that you utilize, that your body absorbs and properly allocates the water you're consuming, so it's not just going through you. This is especially important when you increase your water. So if you're someone who's recently increased their water and you notice that after, it's normal for a few days to a week for you to urinate a bit more frequently and a bit more, but if that continues on more than that, it's probably because you're not consuming enough salt. All right. Little thing that I do, especially during the times every 2 months, I take a week off of caffeine just to give my adrenals a chance to resynthesize. And during that time, instead of having coffee in the morning, I'll have 1 teaspoon of pink Himalayan salt mixed with 8 to 12 ounces, so about a mug. Usually what I would have of coffee, I have a cup of just cold water with some pink Himalayan sea salt in there. It's really good. Also helps resynthesize your adrenals. It really helps wake you up. So let's see, on a scale from 1 to 10, 10 being the best, how would you rate the quality of your sleep? And Silvia says 9. So Silvia, that's awesome. I would really love for you to share what habits and or routines you think, feel, believe contribute to you being able to sleep so well. And not only I think I speak for myself, well, I know I speak for myself because it's me speaking, but I'm sure I speak for the other dojo members when we would love to learn from your experiences, because I know a lot of people answer that question, you know, maybe 1s, 2s, and 3s, and they want to know how they can get to a 9. And that's a big part of the Optimized Self Dojo. I'm a big believer in we are all teachers and we are all students. So I'm sure, you know, just like you can learn a lot from the other dojo members and myself, we can also learn a lot from you. So that would be awesome to hear more from you on how you've achieved that 9 out of 10 quality of sleep. Let's see. Then I asked, how many hours on average do you sleep per night? And Sylvia says 7, which is good. You know, I would say I try to shoot for 7, 7.5. Adults on average require 6 to 9 hours per night. Again, I would love, you know, Sylvia, for you to add to the collective knowledge and experience of the dojo with, again, kind of the systems, routines, habits that you place in your life to regularly get 7 hours of sleep per night. Because I know some people definitely struggle with that. I have to be honest, lately, I've struggled with that. Sleep, out of the 7 foundations of health, is probably the one for me that fluctuates the most. Sometimes I'm really good. I'm like a 9, maybe for a short time 10, but like I'm like a 9, and then other times I'll drop down to like a 5, 6. So you know, I always try to practice what I preach, but I totally admit I am not perfect. And who knows, maybe there's something that you're doing that you know, that can help me as well as the other members. So definitely interested to hear more about that. All right, now here's kind of where everything sounds good on sleeping, Sylvia, but this is a red flag for me at least. What position do you usually sleep in? And it's a multiple choice for those of you that haven't taken the test. And Sylvia says sides. Well, here's the issue with sleep on your side, is sleep on your sides inevitably leads to postural asymmetries because, well, duh, you're sleeping on one side. And there's a very common correlation between side sleeping and scoliosis. I hardly ever meet someone with scoliosis who sleeps on their back. Hardly ever, very rare. So it's almost a given, scoliosis, side sleeper, or vice versa. So what I would recommend doing is, number 1, try to bring a better aligned body to bed with you. What I mean by that is I would suggest lying down in the static back position, and I'll put a video tutorial link to it in the mention links in the show notes below. Basically, you're lying on your back, legs up at 90 degrees, arms out anywhere between 90, 45 degrees from your torso, and just relax there. And this is a good time you can practice that conscious diaphragmatic breath and take it one step further. And that's, you hear in the background, Carmen, our canine, one and only canine member of the Optimized Self Dojo. Where are you going? So what I would recommend is lay down the static back position and then keep your mouth closed. You don't have to press your lips hard together, but just keep your mouth closed and breathe in and out through your nose. This will help trigger the diaphragm at about a 1 to 2 inhale to exhale ratio. So for example, 3 seconds in and 6 seconds out. And doing this will help calm your central nervous system. So that'll also help, your sleep, although it sounds like you're already pretty good at that. But what it'll do is, I would say, spend 5 minutes there doing that. And what that'll do is it'll use your body weight and gravity in opposition to the floor to place your pelvis in a neutral position and segmentally extend and even out left to right the curvature in your spine. Okay. And that way you're bringing a better aligned body with you to bed. A lot of people don't think of sleeping as an activity like they do soccer, but most people would say, yeah, I do some type of warm up before soccer. Well, you want to do something similar. You definitely don't have to do as active. You don't have to do high kicks and stuff before bed, but you want to bring the best aligned body with you to bed, the most symmetrical body. So that's step one. Step two is when you get into bed, what I would suggest is sleep on your back with either 0 to 1 pillow under the head. We don't want your neck to be hyperextended, so use as many as need be, but try to go for either 0 or 1 under the head. And then use 1 to 2 pillows under your knee and lower leg. And this will be kind of like replicating a mini version of the static back position. It'll help unload your pelvis and lower back, but this will be much more symmetrical, obviously, than sleeping on your side. So try that. There are some modifications you can make to it if it proves to be uncomfortable. And granted, I know sleeping position is very much of a habitual thing, and it's not always as easy as just boom, switching it one night. But that'll go a long, long way to helping correct the scoliosis. Because again, the scoliosis is there because of what you do the majority of the time, not your best intentions. So if you're sleeping 7 hours on average per night, give or take, then that's 7 hours practicing a certain position. And if you're sleeping on your side, which inevitably is basically, if you take a picture of a human being on their side and you look at it, almost every person is going to have scoliosis sleeping on their sides. So you're practicing scoliosis or a scoliosis type of posture 7 hours every night. Instead, imagine you could be sleeping on your back with the 0 1 pillows on your head and 1 to 2 pillows on your legs, and you'll be practicing a symmetrical position that isn't going to offset your spine either side. Okay, so just something important to keep in mind. All right, let's move on. Let me grab some water. I'm talking a lot. I think I'd be used to by now. Okay, do you eat any of the following foods on a daily or weekly basis? And basically there's a list on the Optimize Health test of the 7 most common culprits of high inflammatory foods. And the one that Silvia said that she consumes regularly is sugar/artificial sweeteners. To which I would, and that's actually not bad, just 1 out of 7. Most people are doing like 3 or 4, I would say on average. So one of them's not bad. What I would suggest, though, is try and avoid sugars and artificial sweeteners as much as possible because of how they spike blood sugar and insulin levels. And a lot of people have heard this before in terms of weight gain. So it doesn't sound like you're overweight. I think if I look back, I was like 112 or 117. So unless you're extremely short, I don't think you're overweight or need help with that. The issue here isn't really so much weight or body composition, although it may be for some others listening, so listen up. The issue, so it is that makes me think of this is having sugar and artificial sweetener that spikes your blood sugar and insulin is going to rob your mind, i.e. your central nervous system, and what it controls your body of the energy needed to maintain proper postural alignment. Okay, so you want to do everything you can to support your energy reserves during the day so that if you're focusing on sitting or standing straighter or getting more out of exercises that you do to correct your posture, that your body could use its energy. You don't want to consume something that's going to take away from it. All right. And there's more on this inside on the Optimizing Nutrition module on how to use an elimination diet to do this. So again, if you decide to join the dojo, definitely check that out. Let's see. So all these foods like sugar, artificial sweeteners, some other common ones would be corn, soy, dairy, eggs, peanuts. Feel like I'm missing one. Well, and then of course sugars and artificial sweeteners. All these foods have a negative effect on your posture. They increase stress levels, they hinder the efficacy and efficiency of your workouts, and they cause overall systemic inflammation throughout your entire body. So again, I go much deeper and wider into this in the optimizing nutrition module. So if you join the dojo, definitely check that out. Let's see, on a scale from 1 to 10, 10 being stressed out, how would you rate your stress level? A 4. So this is one that I'm always looking more and more on because 90% of doctor visits, at least in the U.S., are stress related. Stress is huge, and I think a lot of times we don't give it the respect and the time and the concern that we do. It's just kind of one of those, oh yeah, that's the thing. It's always there. But there are some things you can do about stress. Number one is eliminate things and people who are distracting from you achieving your goals, i.e., becoming your best self. Also, try to focus, probably the simplest way to control your stress levels, to go from distress to eustress, or to severely, in a positive way, impact or bring down your stress levels is through breathing. We talked about this a little bit earlier on in conscious diaphragmatic breathing. And before going to bed, practicing that 1 to 2 inhale to exhale ratio in and out through your nose, that will actually help, like a dimmer switch, turn down your central nervous system. And I've tried this time and time again with various heart rate sensors attached to me, and going from doing something high intensity like push-ups or burpees, or thinking something really angry or sad and watching my heart rate go up. And in as little as 3 breaths, watch my heart rate just drastically reduce, and then repeat it. And then repeat it and make it go up and make it go down and make it go up and make it go down. And it's really cool to see that something that I think a lot of people are just think that we're at the mercy to of stress, that you actually have control over. And focusing on your breathing can control things like anxiousness, timidness, lack of confidence. You can actually control, what's known as your flight or fight response. It's really cool. And what's used to do this is something known as heart rate variability training, or HRV training. So if you want to look a little bit more into that, at least you know what to Google. I also, just like I mentioned about nutrition, there's an optimizing nutrition module. I also have an optimizing your stress module inside the dojo. So you'll probably want to check that out. Let's see, how many minutes do you spend standing/walking per day? 40 minutes. So to get this a little bit higher, what I would recommend is, and there's a lot of ways you can do this, but just a couple ways, is try working from a standing desk and or on the floor. Like right now, you see I'm kind of fidgeting because I am on the floor and moving around every few minutes. A lot of people ask me what's the best position to sit in, and anybody who's seen the show probably heard me say this before. I'll say it again. Your next position is your best position. There is no perfect or ideal position. Your body will adapt to whatever you do the most. And so you want to just keep varying the position. All right. Also, try to make and take calls or have meetings while walking. And this can be for business or for pleasure. If you're getting on the phone with your mom or someone, and it's going to be a long conversation, go out for a walk, or make your business calls, unless you need a computer right there in front of you, unless you have a tablet or your phone to make appointments and stuff. Do it while you're out and about. Much more effective than just sitting there, as well as tons of study after study have shown that your brain works better when you're moving around and when you're upright. If you're ever at work, especially in the afternoon, and you start noticing, oh, I can't finish this sentence, or I keep, instead of finishing this task, I keep going over to Facebook or something, just get up from your chair, go do maybe some standing windmills or something like that, or even just go walk a little bit down one flight of stairs and back up. You'll come back and you'll notice, like, boom, your creativity, your thought process, everything improves, and you're able to get your work done a lot more efficiently. Let's see. Oh, and a little challenge I always see if people can do, and people are surprised how hard this is, but how great the results they get from this, is try to go an entire day without sitting down. You can use a chair, but don't use it how it's intended, which is to sit on it. You can use it as a desk, like I have my computer right now on a chair. Technically, it's a ottoman, not a chair. So you can do that, and this will help tremendously with your scoliosis, because the more you move, the more you ask your body to assume different positions, the better it's going to get at it and stay at it, assuming that you consistently ask your body to get in and out of and transition from position to position. And if that's in your hips, well, that's going to mean a better foundation for your spine to sit on. If that's your shoulders, a lot of people have trouble reaching overhead because, well, they don't reach overhead that much. And I know that may seem overly simplistic, but it is. How do I get better at reaching overhead? Well, there's certain finesse things you can do and deep tissue massage stuff and corrective exercises, but also it's just start reaching overhead more, Okay. How many hours do you spend sitting / stagnant per day? And Sylvia says 5 hours. So let me take a moment to point out here, and Sylvia, I hope you understand, I'm not picking on you. A lot of people are in the same boat as you. There's some days I am too. By all means, I am not perfect. But you're spending more than 5 times the amount of time sitting and being stagnant than you are standing and walking. And again, you have to remember that the human body is a stimulus response organism that's responding to stimulus 24/7 without prejudice. So you can't do postural corrective exercises for 30 minutes and hope that, okay, my body's going to respond positively to that. It will, but then you can't go sit down for 5 hours and expect your body not to respond in a negative way to that. Your body says, good or bad, I'm going to react to this. It's like going outside and you may be in the freshest, cleanest air city in the world, but if a truck pulls up and shoots out some black gross stuff, your body's going to take that in along with the good air. So it's what you do the majority of the time that matters, not your best intentions. So if you're sleeping, like we talked about sleeping 7 hours a day, that's going to have a lot bigger impact. How you sleep is going to have a much bigger impact on your scoliosis than how long you sit. But also how you sit is going to have a much bigger impact than how you work out, because you sleep and you sit more than you work out. It makes up, if you kind of put on a pie chart, the piece of the pie. Sleep is more, then sitting is more, and then exercise, even though you may exercise, I think it says here, the next couple questions, we're actually, this is a perfect lead-in, perfect transition, is how many times per week do you work out? You say 7, and how long do you work out? 30 minutes. Okay, well, you sleep out of every 24-hour cycle on your sides for 7 hours. Well, you can definitely bet and guarantee that the sleeping is going to have a bigger impact on your scoliosis than 30 minutes. Well, right? 7 hours, 30 minutes. And how many out of every 24 hours are you sitting on average? 5 hours. Okay, again, the sleeping and the sitting are going to have a bigger impact on your position, on your scoliosis, than the exercise. By all means, I hope you understand I'm not poo-pooing over exercise. Exercise is important, but it's not the most important thing. It's part of the equation. It's not the entire equation, okay? So let's go more into the exercise. Here's the thing that I tell people is, as long as you've addressed and are 80% or higher, you don't have to be perfect, but 80% or higher optimal in the other 6 foundations of health, those being breathing, hydration, sleep, nutrition, stress, and movement, then you can get away with very little exercise. And time again, I've seen, with the rare exceptions of people like athletes train for marathons and triathlons, high intensity, shorter duration workouts often prove to be more effective and more efficient than low intensity, longer duration workouts. And like I said, unless you're a competitive athlete and or training for a special skill, which definitely takes more of your central nervous system, 10 to 30 minutes is plenty to achieve low to moderate athletic levels of health and performance. And this is something, I have a long background in exercise, but here's what I found, like I said, over 13 plus years working with, gosh, look at how many people, but spending tens of thousands of dollars and tens of thousands of hours, looking into all this and finding the patterns of why people succeed and why people fail. And that is, and I can't speak for the entire world, although my wife and I are pretty well traveled, but especially America, and I would probably say that a lot of cultures are like this. They put exercise, and this is probably due to misinformation marketing and social memes, put exercise on a pedestal and made it into this, you have to exercise, you have to exercise. And again, I think exercise is really important. And I love biomechanics and kinesiology and all that, and posture. I can geek out over that. I can talk to the cows come home and then talk to the cows about it. But what I would recommend to a lot of people is exercise less, or focus less on exercise and focus more on living better. Just like we talked about earlier, how you're sleeping, how you're sitting, how you're breathing, how much you're drinking, what you're eating, stress, all that plays a much bigger role in your overall well-being and contributor to why you're having the scoliosis than your exercise. Exercise is important, but don't rely solely on exercise to fix your problem. Okay. And also, last thing about exercise, just be careful not to overtrain, and remember that the results you get from exercise are limited by the combined state / quality of your other foundations of health. All right. Sorry, I got a little pop up here. I'm also gonna close some windows because I don't think we need these up. Save a little bandwidth, right? All right. So we covered that. I thought there was one more thing about exercise I wanted to add, but I think that's fine. How conducive is your environment? Things like your work, home, peer group, etc., to you achieving your goals. On a scale from 1 to 10, 10 being ideal, 0 being not very. And Sylvia says an 8. So that sounds good. And I'm sure everyone, like myself, is curious to know how you've accomplished this. How have you structured things like work, home, your peer group, into being conducive, to being supportive of what it is you're trying to achieve? Because the thing that I always tell people is, just like, everybody says you are what you eat, like we talked about earlier, you are actually what you eat. You are the average of who you hang out with, of what you read, what you watch, what you listen to, the things, the people, everything that you surround yourself with, and most importantly, what you do. So that was another founding principle of the Optimize Self Dojo, was to, create a peer group of like-minded individuals who want to be the absolute best version of themselves possible, so then they can go out and positively motivate and influence others to be the best version of themselves possible. That's one way, a peer group. We also talk about other ways about, modifying your environment to be conducive of, if you're trying to change your posture or trying to change your diet, all those things. So Sylvia, would love to hear more about how you've achieved the 8 out of 10 on making your environment conducive to you. So that's great. Let's see, what is your general mindset? Informed and optimistic. This is a powerful combination. Just remember that there's a big difference between knowing / feeling and feeling hopeful and confident about something versus actually doing it. I always applaud people who learn and research things and become knowledgeable on them. But I always tell them, with all due respect, until you've applied the knowledge and turned that into experience, whether you succeeded or you failed, and I hate in that circumstance to use the word failure. I only think of failure as if you never attempt to do. That's the only way you fail. So let's say, instead of failure, unless you try something, you take your knowledge, you apply it to real life, and then you either succeed and you learn from that, or you don't succeed and you find what were your mistakes and you learn from that. But until you've done that, knowing and not doing is practically the same as not knowing. And again, with the Optimize Self Dojo, we basically put together a group that we can leverage off the collective knowledge, but more importantly, experience of other people. Because, one person, we all have 24 hours in a day. We only have so much time to research and learn health, fitness, wellness things, some more than others, right? This is my job, this is my business, this is my life. Other people, if you have a job, a career that isn't health, fitness related, you have way, way less time than me. But still, even me alone, I can't compete with 20, 30, 50, people combined who are looking into this stuff. So we crowdsource, we gather up all of our collective knowledge and our experience, and that's a much more efficient way to learn, right, and gain experience. Okay, is there anything else that you feel, think, believe is contributing to holding you back from being your optimized self? Silvia says, sometimes I let misjudgments or judgments of people get to me and make me insecure. So this, Silvia, I would love to share with you my kind of, I don't know if I have a name for it, but 33.3% rule. So it goes like this. 33.3% of people are going to love you no matter what you do. Another 33.3% of people are going to hate you no matter what you do. And 33.3% of people are going to be on the fence about you. So be grateful for the first group, be thankful for the second group, and only worry about convincing and winning over that third group. All right. Oh, hopefully that helps. Because been there, done that myself, worrying about what people think, especially being online. And what if someone leaves a nasty bad comment? If they do, then okay. Not really concerned about those people. Okay, so what holds you accountable and supports you in your health, fitness, wellness endeavors? Silvia says, my husband, and I think that's awesome. I think it's so important to have a good partner in life, and it sounds like you, like me, we're both very lucky to have found ours. My wife is amazing. She supports me in everything that I do, health, fitness, wellness, business, wise, and I, and I her. So I think that's great that you have a great partner in that. It's also good to surround yourself with other like-minded individuals with the same or similar goals. Like we talked about earlier, you are, after all, the averages of, the saying is the five people that you spend the most time with. And it doesn't always have to be physically in person. It could be virtual. It could be on things like podcasts and stuff. That's why every morning I start, probably the first hour of the day, I'm listening to a podcast, because I want to put good stuff. I want to subject myself, and by subject I mean in a good way, put good stimulus in here so that I can supply good stimulus out. Let's see. So yeah, if you do join the dojo, and your husband is more than welcome to join too, would love to have you guys. Sound like a power couple. Then yeah, lean on your fellow ninjas and ninjettes. That's what we call ourselves in the dojo. Keep it fun there. That's what we're here for. And I definitely think there's power in numbers. People have heard, especially if you've done any times of investment, OPM, other people's money. Well, there's also OBT, other people's time. And I don't mean that in a mean way, like you're using people, but you're leveraging off other people's time, because obviously with every person added, with every person that is added to the group, cumulatively, the amount of hours spent learning and applying what we've all learned and gaining experience goes up. Right, makes sense. I really have nothing else to say about that. Do you know about the Optimize Self Dojo? Well, now you do. But if you want to learn more, just go to optimizeself.ninja. We'd love to have you as a member. And like I said, by all means, bring the hubby along too. My wife and I, she sometimes joins me on the show, more so the live trainings during the every Saturday at 10 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. I think once or twice she's joined me on the show, but anyways, let's see. I think we're getting to the last one or two questions. What would you love to see in your inbox from optimizeself.ninja? Let's see. She says, considering I'm after improvements, ideals for workout, video if possible, occasional pep talk, stories of success with severe scoliosis, improvements. All right. Sorry, I was doing some scrolling there. Where'd I go? So Silvia, yeah, you would definitely be interested in checking out the optimizing your movement and exercise modules. And those can be found inside the Optimize Self Arsenal, which at the beginning I kind of showed you that's housed inside the Optimize Self Dojo. as well as you said, where was it here? The occasional pep talk. The other thing that you would, I think you'd really, really like is what's known as the optimized daily motivation slash inspiration videos. And these are 440 short videos. They were done back to back in consecutive days of thoughts, quotes, questions, ideas, a little helpful, like you said, inspiration, pep talks. There's 440 of them. There's a whole playlist of them that I did a little over a year ago. Plus, to add to that, I've started a new playlist since starting Optimize Self Ninja, which I refer to as Catalyst of the Day. And these are things like questions, thoughts, facts, I think if I already know, I say quotes, challenges, call to action of the day. And these are short 15-second or less videos. And I think by now there's like 167 of them. So there's plenty of those. So if you want to like little bite-size inspiration and motivation, that's in there for you too. Last but certainly not least, as far as more on scoliosis, I can share with you real quickly my own story with scoliosis. I was never, I think, diagnosed with it, but if I look back at old postural photos of myself, I was very offset. In postural alignment therapy, they call it a lateral offset rather than scoliosis. I think that's because technically postural alignment therapists aren't allowed to make diagnosis like you have scoliosis. But again, scoliosis, just like arthritis, it's just an adjective. A lot of people get scared of those terms, but do a quick Google, do a quick Wikipedia or Medscape or whatever source you know, like, and trust. And when you start reading it, you just realize, this is just shorthand. So instead of saying this big long explanation, they fit it into one word. It's an adjective. That's it. So again, I had this lateral offset with some rotation. So if you were to go to a doctor, yeah, you would be diagnosed as scoliosis. So I've had it myself. I've worked with many people with scoliosis. And I'll share with you real quickly just some common patterns that I've noticed working with people who have had scoliosis. And actually, I think the next question after coming up, I think I'm pronouncing it right, Busi from South America, is actually struggling with structural scoliosis. So Silvia, I don't know, I forget if you mentioned if it's functional scoliosis or structural. For those of you that don't know, structural, unless it's idiopathic, meaning they don't know the cause, is usually due to a genetic birth defect that can be improved upon. It's just a little bit hard. It's a little bit more challenging to do so. I'm getting ahead of myself though. So with scoliosis, usually it's this disconnect between, let's see if I can back up here to show you. It's this disconnect between the shoulders, the hips, the spine, and the shoulders, basically what's above and below the spine. And if one is off, then it's going to offset the other. The other thing that I don't think I've not seen this with someone with scoliosis is there's some type of shoulder asymmetry. So one shoulder is higher than the other, it's more rolled forward than the other. And I kind of briefly touched upon this earlier, is if you think of your pelvis, your hips as the hull of a boat, and your spine as the mast of that boat or ship, your shoulder blades are like these sails. And if one shoulder blade is higher, lower, or out further, just like a sail catching the wind, which will pull the boat to one way, that's how you steer a sailboat, so will it drag your spine in a lateral and rotational direction, which we call scoliosis. So a lot of times, it's not the answer, but it's always a huge contributor, is look at your shoulders. And I'm very, very positive you're going to find one different than the other. Again, either higher or lower, one's out more to the side than the other. And when you correct that, you're going to unlock a lot of, basically you'll feed slack in between the shoulder and the spine, and that'll allow the spine to get back to its kind of original blueprint, more straight up and down. So take a look at that. And then the other is same thing down below, asymmetries in the pelvis. But more often than not, it's from the shoulders. A lot of that could happen because you're left or right-handed. You use that one, one arm more than the other. So definitely start there. But yeah, scoliosis, especially functional scoliosis, could always be improved upon, if not totally realigned. Just depends on the curvature of the spine, how long you've dealt with it. If it's a teenager who's only been dealing with it for a couple of years, it's much easier to fix than an older person, not because of their age, as in like, oh, you're just 50 or 60, but because they've been practicing that scoliotic, if that's a word, but kind of scoliosis type posture for longer. And practice doesn't make permanent, but it does make, practice doesn't make perfect, it makes permanent. So it's going to take, if you're older and not addressing this till later, a bit more time than if you addressed it, earlier on. But there is still definitely hope. So yeah, I've worked with more, I've lost count over the number of people I've worked with scoliosis. There's definitely hope. And again, exercise is part of it, but take a look at your overall lifestyle. And let's see, have you shared OptimizeSelf.ninja with a friend, family member, or someone you care about? So it says no, but I promise I will. Yeah, I would say definitely start by sharing it with your husband. Sounds like earlier on, the way that that he holds you accountable, he supports you, and it sounds like vice versa. So start with your husband. You guys can join the dojo independently or join together. You kind of go in as a team. And I think you and the other dojo members would mutually benefit from you joining the family. And I look forward to seeing you and your husband inside. All right. So with that, Silvia, thank you very much for taking the Optimize Self test. I hope some of these answers were helpful to you. Like I said, probably kind of like the next step to go from here would be to join the Optimize Self Dojo. I do offer one-on-one sessions as well as retainers, but I always recommend people start with, this is kind of something you can apply to many parts of life, is what's known as the minimum effective dose. So I always tell people, start with the dojo. It may not be as much one-on-one time, but as kind of more one-on-many, but you have access to so many tools, guides, resources in the Optimize Self arsenal, as well as continual support from me and the other dojo members. I personally think, although if you look at the dollar amount, business-wise, people are always like, why do you recommend that over that? Like, doesn't it better for you if you sell those? I go, yeah, but I think people get more bang for their buck out of being a member of the Optimize Self Dojo. So go to optimizeself.ninja, take a look, see what's included in the dojo. If you have any questions, please, feel free to follow up with me. You got, I think my email now, or you can shoot me a text or voicemail over at, hold on, it's over there to the phone number. And yeah, I would love to answer any questions that you have, and hopefully see you inside the dojo. All right. Thank you, Silvia, for taking the Optimize Self test, and I'll talk with you later. Bye. All right, so we're moving on to kind of the shorter questions. We're just sticking with one Optimize Self test response per episode now, because we found 2 or 3 goes way too long. Okay, so hopefully I'm pronouncing this correctly. Busi, is it like Gary Busey? Busi, if I'm pronouncing it wrong, I apologize. But Busi from South Africa writes in, hi there, my name is Busi from South Africa. Hello. I've been diagnosed with structural scoliosis. I have an S-shaped curve. It isn't bad enough for surgery though. I've got a rotation to the right with my right shoulder elevated. We were actually talking earlier about the correlation between shoulder asymmetries and scoliosis with Silvia. So Busi, you're in a similar boat here. Sorry, where was I? I've got upper and mid back pain as well as shoulder pain. Thanks. Okay, so, and again, I got a little ahead of myself when I was addressing Silvia, but I thought this was an important question to include in today's episode, because with Silvia, we were talking about, and I can't say for certain, but it sounded more like functional scoliosis. Structural scoliosis that isn't idiopathic, meaning caused by an unknown factors, and that can be linked to some kind of congenital birth defect, things like spina bifida, cerebral palsy, muscle dystrophy, and other similar disorders. They're often harder to correct than functional scoliosis, but definitely not impossible. All right. So it definitely can improve. Um, and just like we talked about with Silvia, and I'll kind of quickly go over again with Busi, is just look at what's above and below the spine. That is to say, your hips and your shoulders. And it sounds like you've already been paying attention to that, Busi, because you said, where was it? You notice that your torso is rotated to the right and your right shoulder is elevated, so that's good. I don't know if you're taking a look at your hips, see if one's higher or there's rotated, but that could definitely play a part and definitely contribute to the scoliosis. Let's see. So, and here's a question that I always ask people with structural scoliosis, or anything that is caused by some type of congenital birth defect. Um, there's still some people that have been labeled with structured scoliosis that actually it's not a birth defect, but there are some that is. It does exist. But the question I always pose to people when they say, is there hope? Could this be better? Is think it didn't always used to be as bad as it was. Has it? To which case most people say, no, it hasn't. Well, then let's get it back to the way it used to be. And a common story that I share with people is a woman, older woman, she was, I think 66, 67, had a leg length discrepancy. Now, a lot of people come to me saying, I have one leg longer than the other. And what it turns out to be is that they actually have one hip higher than the other, or their upper or lower leg is rotated. And so it gives the impression of a leg length discrepancy. But it's I guess what you would consider a functional leg length discrepancy, not a structural, like their upper thigh bone or their lower shin bone is longer or shorter than the other side. But this woman, I can't recall her name because it was a very, very long time ago, but yeah, she was like 66, 67. Anyway, she had I want to say it was a 4-inch discrepancy in her legs, and she was actually outfitted with a raise, a lift in her shoe to even it out. And she was having some hip pain, and she asked, could this be improved on? And by that time, I already kind of listened to her story. And she's, like I said, 66, 67. And I said, when did this hip pain start to hurt you? And she said, only like the last 6 months. And it's gotten, worse and worse and worse. And I said, okay, but like 9 months, 12 months ago, how was it? And she's like, fine, I didn't have any pain. And it's like, okay, but you still had the leg length discrepancy. She's like, well, of course, I've had that my entire life. I said, okay, well, then there is hope. Granted, no amount of postural corrective exercises and no amount of lifestyle change is gonna make up for a 4-inch discrepancy, birth defect of your legs, right? That'd be kind of silly thinking that. But what we can do is get you back to where it was before. And I said, if we can do that, would you be happy with those results? And she said, yes, because even though, yes, I've grown up, my whole life I've had this leg discrepancy, she goes, it hasn't kept me from doing anything that I've wanted to do, assuming that she wears her lift and everything. And I said, okay, that is definitely, doable. So, what I would recommend, Busi, for the scoliosis, I will include a link in the show notes under mentioned links to an extra. Actually, I think they're already included. Yeah, because I put them. Actually, I don't even have to include the link. I'll include the link too, if I remember, to the actual video post that talks about scoliosis. But I will also already include it in the show notes because I put it there for Silvia, are the following exercises that'll help with scoliosis. Standing windmill, static back arm glides, and cats and dogs. So those 4 exercises in that order will be listed in the show notes under mentioned links. And you can do that to start to help realign the scoliosis. And basically, those exercises are designed to start to restore kind of an equal length and tension of the muscles left to right and front to back of the body. So that's why I'd recommend starting. After that, kind of the next step to take is go to optimizeself.ninja. You'll see the logo at the top, video player. We can watch these episodes of the Optimize Self show. And below that, a big red, orange, yellowish button. It says, click here to take the Optimize Self test, blah, 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 and some other words. Click that button, put your email in, and you'll be emailed a link to take the Optimize Self test. And basically what the Optimize Self test is a self-assessment questionnaire that will help you kind of self-assess your, how you're doing in certain areas of your life. Things like breathing, hydration, sleep, nutrition, stress, movement, exercise, and other things like environment and mindset. Because all those things, total health being a cumulative, all those things are influencing and contributing to your pain, posture, and overall performance. And so by taking that test and filling out, the answers to each of the questions, you'll be supplying me with the information I need to answer your questions. And if you want to see basically how I did that, just go back in the timestamps to me replying to Silvia's responses, and you'll see those are the questions that are asked, and then of course I will answer them depending on whatever your answers are. So that would be the next step. Also, while you're there on optimizeself.ninja and you click on that button to take the Optimize Self test, if you scroll below where you clicked on that button, you'll start to see a description of certain tools, guides, resources, video tutorials, and other pretty much awesome stuff that's included as a member in the membership to the Optimize Self Dojo. So you can see what is the Optimize Self Dojo and what's included inside. I already went, you can also go to the introduction on the timestamps and see for yourself a little behind the scenes of what's included inside. But just go to optimizeself.ninja and just start reading everything that's included. I think that would also be, you would definitely benefit from that as well. All right. And let's see, last but certainly not least, if you found this answer and some of the links that I linked to in the show notes below over on YouTube helpful, I would really appreciate it if you like the video, share it with any friends, family, coworkers, the cat, anyone that you think could benefit from this information, please share it with them. I know they would appreciate you thinking about them. I would really appreciate you helping, share the love and spread the share the world, spread the love, share the word. So excited. And you would basically be both of our heroes. So that would be awesome. And then last but certainly not least, if you haven't already done so, go ahead and click the subscribe button over on youtube.com/Optimize Self Ninja. That's basically the Optimize Self Ninja YouTube channel. That way you can stay up to date with all the recent happenings and going on inside the Optimize Self ecosphere. All right. Anyways, I look forward to hearing from you in a response to the Optimize Self test and hopefully someday soon inside the Optimize Self Dojo. All right. Busi, thank you very much for writing in, and we'll talk with you soon. All right. Until then, take care and be a good human. All right. We got one more question of the day. I'm going to down what's left of my coffee. It's a little cold, but that's okay. Okay, hopefully I'm pronouncing this one right. Yael left a comment/question on YouTube to a post I put up, I think it was last year, titled "Why Most People Should Not Be Running." And before anybody who's a runner starts in on me, go watch the video. You'll understand, why I titled that video that. All right, it's not like I'm anti-running, just anti-running the way most people run for their own sake, looking out for people. Okay. So go check that out. There'll be a link to the show notes below. But Yael says and asks, is there any significance? Yeah, let me start over. Is there any significance as to how you press your feet to the ground automatically, and is it fixable? So first of all, Yael, sorry for taking so long. I think it's been about like 2 weeks to reply to your comment and question. I've been a little preoccupied fumbling my way through trying to figure out how to properly host this show, put together the Optimize Self test, which I can talk about a little bit later, and basically taking care of the ninjas and ninjets inside the Optimize Self Dojo, which is kind of the private group that I run. But I digress. Thank you for for your patience in this answer. Anyway, so when walking and or running, your foot should land, when it lands in front of you in hip flexion. So for example, boom, right? So that'd be in flexion with your foot, with your leg landing in front of you. It should basically land more towards the outer edge or slightly supinated. Then, as the leg goes from in front of you, goes beneath you, and then goes behind you, talking all about my left leg here, in extension, it should go into a slight pronation, okay? Without going too long in this, because I can go on and on about the foot and ankle. It's a pretty awesome part of the body. It's where most of the bones and joints are. I will definitely recommend you check out, and maybe you already have done so, but if not, check out a video post I did called Foot/Ankle Biomechanics 101, and I'll link to it in the show notes below. And if you're looking to make sure your feet are working, and it's even more than just your feet. It's really the connection, the kinetic chain between your hips, knees, and ankles to make sure that's working properly, so you get what I just demonstrated when you walk and when you run. Use the foot and ankle routine that's found inside the Foot/Ankle Biomechanics 101. And if memory serves me right, it was a long time, but I think I remember this one. It's foot circles and point flexes, supine calf and hamstring stretch, static extension or static extension position, and then air bench. Okay, so check those out. Those are linked to in the post that I'll link to below, the Foot/Ankle Biomechanics 101. And yeah, that basically be kind of the next steps to take. I did mention, I didn't actually mention to Yael. I was talking to Busi before. This is just in terms of exercise stuff. But it's important to remember that exercise, although important, it's only part of the recipe. It's not the entire recipe. And that the human body is a stimulus response organism that's responding to stimulus 24/7 without prejudice. So it's what you do the majority of the time that matters, not your best intentions. So things like breathing, hydration, sleep, nutrition, stress, movement, then exercise and other things like environment, mindset, all those things are affecting how you walk and how you run, your posture and your overall health, fitness, and well-being. That said, I would love to give you more specific advice to you, but obviously just off this question, I don't have as much to go off of. So if you're interested, go to optimizedself.ninja and you'll see the logo at the top, video player. We can watch past episodes of the Optimize Self show. And then below that, a big red orange button says click here to take the Optimize Self test and blah, 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 a couple other words. Click that button, put your email in, and you'll be sent a link to take the Optimize Self test, which is a self-assessment kind of diagnostic tool that will cause you to self-assess, kind of self-evaluate your how you're doing in each of those foundations of health, the breathing, the hydration, all those ones that I just listed. And by taking that, you'll also be able to ask me some questions in there as well, but you'll be giving me the information I need to better help you. So you'll be helping me help you. I know it sounds kind of cliche, but it's true. That's basically what it is. And then also, while you're on optimizeself.ninja and you've taken the where you click to take the Optimize Self test, scroll below that and you'll start to see all the things that are included as a part of the membership to the Optimize Self Dojo, and see if that's a fit for you. If it is, then I would definitely recommend you join. If not, you can reach me on YouTube like you have before. You can also call or text me at the number below and let me know, maybe why you think it's not a fit for you. What can I do to make it valuable to you, and how can I be a more continual service? All right, and I think that about covers it. On YouTube, that's where you comment to me, so I'm sure you spend some time there. I would really, really appreciate it if you liked the video, assuming you found this helpful. And if you can think of anyone else that you think could benefit from this information, whether it's to your question or to some of the other answers, some of the other questions that I answered on today's episode, please share it with them. I know they would appreciate it, as well would I. You'd be helping them, you'd be helping me, you'd basically be both of our heroes. So thank you for that in advance. And if you haven't already done so, go ahead and click the subscribe button on the Optimize Self Ninja YouTube channel. That way you can stay up to date on all the recent happenings and going on inside the Optimize Self ecosystem. All right. Anyways, thank you, Yael, for writing in your comment, and I look forward to hearing from you soon, whether it be you taking the Optimize Self test, or hopefully one day soon inside the Optimize Self Dojo. Until then, take care and be a good human. All right, so we're done with questions of the day. Now we're going to get on to the catalyst of the day. Let me grab some water. Okay, so the catalyst of the day. Again, this is something kind of fun, but I wanted to share with you guys. Let me get this up here. Okay, and I'm going to do a screen share. Perfect. So you guys should be able to see that now. So this is something, let me get to the window, called Better Back. And it says perfect posture effortlessly. Obviously you can see that on the screen, and assuming you can read. So this is pretty cool. And it was brought to my attention by a friend, a colleague of mine, a couple days, maybe a week ago. And I thought this was pretty cool because actually I'm already doing something similar with some resistance bands, which I'll show you in just a little bit. But basically what it does, okay, you can see obviously it's about posture. And so many people, like Silvia said, she sits for 5 hours a day. Some people sit more, and you want to make sure that you're sitting correctly. So what this does, I think this little thing shows it best, is there's some suspension bands that you can tighten and loosen. I believe one size fits all. And it helps with the resistance between your knees, and it pulls your pelvis and your lower back in extension so that you sit in an upright position. And you can do it in various ways and forms. And you can check out the Kickstarter page. I will link to it in the show notes below. But I thought this was really cool. Here we go. Yeah, you can see this GIF, as they call it, and how it holds your body there. Now, I call this kind of a posture. I refer to this as kind of like a posture cheat, because I always prefer people to exercise their bodies or work their bodies in certain positions so that they're actually using their muscles to do so. But if this is anything like the resistance bands that I use to do this, you're still using enough muscle to hold you there. This will simply kind of help almost as a kind reminder, as well as the pulling of the knees backwards towards kind of like your back and your butt. That'll actually help place the heads of the femur towards the back of the hip sockets. So that should also help. And I believe this thing isn't being made until October. You can check out the page yourself, but you can Kickstarter, you always get them for discounts. So I think you get one for like $50, and where was it? Yeah, so 95, you get 2 of them. Oh, some of them are all gone. So check to see how you push, but I thought that was really, really neat. Oops, I started the video. I'll let you guys watch that later. So I'll show you what I do, something similar, okay? So let me back up here and let me grab this little ottoman. Oh, there's Carmen. She's showing you how to stretch too. I'll go over here so you guys can see her. She's better looking. So, I have these resistance bands. These I got from Rogue Fitness, but basic, resistance bands. And so what I do, and I don't do this all the time, but if I know I'm going to be sitting for a while, I wrap this around my back, and I will have one around one knee like so, and the other around the other like that, and that basically helps sit upright. And it's actually really comfortable, but I think the Better Back is going to be more comfortable because you can see this green band, there's a smaller focal point of where it's pulling, and the other one looks kind of more broad and a little bit more cushiony. So you can do this with some basic resistance bands, or you can invest in one of the Better Back. I think there's only like one model, but you can get one for yourself. And this actually feels really, really good. I almost kind of don't want to get out of this. But it's nice. It helps you kind of naturally sit more upright, and again, it helps pull that femur towards the back of the hip socket. So feels really good. And then you just slide it off. So basically, the better back just looks like a more comfortable version of what I was doing there. So you get the better back, or you can just use a resistance band like I've done there. All right. So that is the catalyst of the day. And let's see. If you do like kind of those little tips, tricks, again, I call them catalysts of the day. I definitely recommend you like, share, and subscribe, especially subscribe over at YouTube, youtube.com/optimizeself. youtube.com/optimizeself ninja. Just go to YouTube, put in Optimize Self Ninja, you'll find me. And you want to subscribe because each day I put out a 15-second or shorter catalyst of the day video. And these are questions, thoughts, facts, quotes, challenges, call to actions of the day that work as catalysts for positive change in your life, okay? And try to keep them fun, try to keep them thought-provoking, and sometimes they're even little things like this. All right, so if that sounds interesting to you, definitely want to subscribe over on YouTube. And with that, one more drink of water, and we will close this out. All right, so thank you for watching today's episode. Really, really appreciate it. You guys are awesome. High five or virtual high five. Don't hit your computer screen. I'll be sent bills and invoices for them. Let's see, what can you do from here? Well, I would definitely recommend, if you haven't already done so, to take the Optimize Self test. You just go to optimizeself.ninja, right below the video player where you can watch past episodes of the Optimize Self show, including this episode once this is up there. You can click on that big red, orange, yellow button, put your email in, and a link to the Optimize Self test will be sent to you. If you've already done that, or you scroll below that big red, orange button and you check to see everything that's included inside the Optimize Self Dojo, again, this is all over on the same website, one-page website, keeping it nice, clean, simple. You can see everything that's included inside the Optimize Self Dojo over there as well. And if you're looking through and you think it's a good fit, then I would definitely recommend clicking I believe it's a darker reddish orange button, and purchasing a membership to the Optimize Self Dojo. And if you have any questions about it, if you're on the fence, for whatever reason, please, contact me, send me an email, a YouTube comment, a Facebook message, smoke signal, or heck, even just text or call me and ask me any questions you have about joining the dojo, which actually probably brings me to another way you can contact me if you want to ask a question. You can text me over at, point more over here, 619-800-2459. You can text me any questions, or you can leave a voicemail, and I can play that on the show. All right, and I think that covers it. Oh, last but certainly not least, I always like to provide more value and be of continual service, especially if it's going to be an exchange of some type of, financial compensation, basically paying me. So that's why I have the Optimize Self Dojo. I have one-on-one sessions. I have retainers. And I have all that. Some people, just say, hey, I like the show and I want to support this, but maybe the dojo and the one-on-one sessions or any of the other stuff isn't for me. So I've set up a donation page over at optimizeself.ninja/support. I'll put that in the show notes below, and you could contribute as little or as much you want. It could be a one-time payment. It could be a monthly recurring payment. And I do have plans to expand that into other ways you can support, like an Amazon link. So that way you can use that Amazon link. You can, I'm sure you're well aware, you know what Amazon is. You can purchase almost anything on there, and it doesn't cost you anything more, but I would get anywhere from a 4 to 8% commission or kind of finder's fee for pointing you for using that link. That would go towards supporting the show, and probably later on we'll get some merchandise, some t-shirts, some mugs, some fun stuff, and find some other ways to support the show. But again, I always like to give and give more. So I always prefer people to, if they want to support the show, join the dojo. That's a great way of supporting the show, because also then you get more of value. You actually get, just in the first year, $3,650 worth of value. For right now, I think the membership's going for $22 or $23. It does go up for every member, and right now it's a one-time fee. It is going to eventually turn into a annual, quarterly, and monthly membership. So it'll be a recurring payment, but right now it's just a one-time payment. So this is definitely, I would say, get in sooner rather than later to save some money. Okay. And absolutely last but not least, I feel like I've said that a lot. I should probably use that too much. But I'll say it one more time. Last but certainly not least, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe over on youtube.com/optimize self ninja. And with that, I will bid you adieu. Thank you very much for joining me on today's episode. I look forward to seeing you inside the next one. Until then, take care and be a good human.